Blinking. Friday. And this thing would not at all. I don't know why.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It is 5:02 p.m. As we begin this meeting, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other devices and remind council our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of technology during council meetings. It is 5:02 p.m. I will call this council planning meeting to order. I will note that Councillor Butwell has sent regrets and Councillor McCausland has advised that she will be a little bit late for the meeting. As our meeting gets underway, I acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land, specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation, with this formal territorial acknowledgement. We are meeting on the Gunshot Treaty lands of 1788. It is on these lands and on the shores of the Big Lake that the Mississauga Anishinaabe met with the Crown to facilitate the opening of these lands for settlement. Let us be reminded of the responsibility we all have in making sure that we respect these lands and waters that give us life and sustain our livelihoods. We move to an approval of the agenda with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council approve the October 14th, 2025, planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of council, have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. We will read a motion to proceed into the closed session. If council chooses to do so, we will then, when we come out of the closed session, we will recess the meeting until 6:30 when the regular planning agenda items will be presented in open session. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council resolve into closed session October 14th, 2025 at 5:04 p.m. Pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act, R.S.O. 2001 as amended, Subsection 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, land banking discussion, and K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, encroachment of municipal land. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We'll give staff a moment to transition into the closed session.
We have to go down and do.
It's 5:07 PM. I'll call this closed session meeting to order and ask members of council if you have any declarations of pecuniary interest. There are none noted. The minutes of the September 15th, 2025 meeting were presented. I'll need a motion that council adopt the September 15th, 2025 closed session minutes as presented. Councillor Wheeldon, second. Councillor Wright, discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Items for discussion this evening are pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act, R.S.O. 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)(c). A proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, land banking discussions. And K, position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality local board, encroachment of municipal land. So the first item is a verbal update land bank program purchase of the Walker lands. Director Walsh.
Good Mayor to Council. So we made had the appraisal done on the agreement of purchase and sale was presented to the Walkers. There's two parcels involved there. Their home lot, and one we'll recognize is the one with the hummingbird in front.
Hang on for a second. Hang on for a second.
Sorry.
session, at which point, actually, I'm just going to declare a recess now as you do that. So it's 5:38 PM. We are recessed till 6:30 PM. an oral submission to council at the statutory public meeting. This will best inform council on the land use planning matter prior to council making our final decision. The province's regulations now limit appeal rights to only the applicant and specified regulated persons. For details or information on the new appeal process, please visit the municipal website or I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council move into the statutory public meeting October 14th, 2025 at 6:34 p.m. Is there any discussion? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. First item in our statutory public meeting is a consent application file B04-2025. The subject lands are 28 to 30 Division Street North. The applicant is 9814353 Canada Inc. And the purpose of the meeting is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting before council makes a decision and to obtain public input towards making a decision on the proposed consent application. So Ms. Britnell, by what method and on what date was notice of the application given?
Through your worship, notice of the consent application was provided in compliance with statutory notice requirements of the Planning Act. A public notice was posted on the property on September 22nd, 2025. Additionally, a notice of public meeting was mailed to landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands and all agencies on September 22nd, 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Britnell. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject application before council this evening?
Through your worship, the purpose of consent application B4-2025 is to sever the property to create one new residential lot, shown in attachment 1, subject lands map. Both the severed and retained lots would be developed with one single detached dwelling with 2 additional residential units for a total of 3 units per lot. Staff are recommending approval of the new consent application to allow for the proposed redevelopment of subject lands as shown in the site plan attachment 2. The subject lands are located on the west side of Division Street North, just south of Chapel Street. The subject lands are currently occupied by a 1.5-story duplex dwelling with final cladding. The existing house is sited close to the street frontage with no foliage. Staff are satisfied with the adequacy of the common area, open space, a communal amenity area, in other words, and exterior access to the ARUs via the front of the building permitted by the existing zoning bylaw. See attachment 3, zoning bylaw 033-2023. On April 11, 2023, the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton had given provisional consent to this past consent application under B14-2022 for the development of the principal and additional residential units. The approval was subject to condition H that the applicant enter into a development agreement with the municipality and that will implement recommendations and conclusions of the site plan, lot grading plan, and stormwater management report. It is anticipated that council would enter into the same development agreement under new consent application B4-2025.
Thank you, Ms. Britnell. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject application? Questions or comments from members of council? When did the postage go out? I'm just wondering, I want to make sure that everyone had time to receive it before the strike, which ended in theory today.
Yes, so 2 things come to mind through your worship. The first is the Canada Post strike was called on September 26th. So 4 days prior, the notice was posted on September 22nd, and it is my understanding that we have met the statutory requirements by having the physical sign present on the lot through a belt and suspenders approach of at least having the sign posted. Again, I feel that we've done our best, but I defer to more senior planners.
Nicely. Thank you. Director Walsh, do you have any comment on that question? I just want to make sure that people have opportunity whenever we do things like this to make comment, especially in their neighborhood.
Yeah, to the mayor, to the council, we follow the regulations of the Planning Act. So we'll have regulations for our public notices to be given for consent. And it provides 2 options. One is to publish in a newspaper of widespread distribution, which we no longer have. or put up a sign and thirdly, to give notice to persons with landowners within 120 meters of the subject land. So the sign is sufficient for completing this notice. And this is more of a technical consent. It's a previously approved consent, but that it had lapsed. And so we've had recent discussions about that as well.
Thank you for
Council
that.
may recall.
Yeah, I do know that these subject lands have been before council before, and we did have approvals, and I think most of us were just waiting for a development agreement to come forward, quite frankly. So thank you for that. Any other questions from members of council? Ms. Britnell, any final comments?
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council received the staff report dated October 14th, 2025 regarding the subject applications for 28 to 30 Division Street North being consent application B04 2025. And the council approved consent application B04 2025 subject to the conditions outlined in this report. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next item in our statutory public meeting is with regard to a zoning bylaw amendment file Z02 2025. Subject lands are on Walt Street. The applicant is Wayne O'Brien. The purpose of the public meeting is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting before council makes a decision and to obtain public input towards making a decision on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Mr. Warren, by what method and on what date was notice of the application given?
Thank you. Through your worship, the notice of the zoning bylaw amendment was provided in compliance with the statutory notice requirements just mentioned in the, similar to as mentioned in the previous application. A public notice sign was posted on the property on the 22nd of September. And additionally, the notice of public meeting was mailed to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands, including those in Quinte West, also on September 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject application before council this evening?
Absolutely. Through the chair, the subject lands are located, as I say, just west of Walt Street and south of Smith Street in the hamlet of Smithfield. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the 0.7 hectare subject lands from the current future development zone, which is sort of a holding zone in the middle of the hamlet, to a hamlet residential exception number 15 holding zone, which sounds like a fair bit, but in essence, it's a proposed site-specific zoning that will place the subject lands in an appropriate zone for a residential dwelling to be built on the lot in the future with the reduced frontage onto a public street. Currently, the privately maintained right-of-way currently the subject lands are accessed through a privately maintained right-of-way, which is a separate block of land in favor of the subject lands and the abutting lands to the west. It has legal frontage of 5.48 meters, which is about 18 feet, onto Walt Street, which is a publicly maintained road.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject applications? Please step up to the microphone here and we'll get you to sign in. There's a sign-in sheet in front of you. Madam Clerk, is the microphone activated?
I think it is.
Thanks, Ron.
Hi, my name's Murph Doyle. I live up at the front of said property. I'm here to just get some clarifications. I'm not used to this type of jargon. So basically my concerns are the right of way to stay as a right of way. And when they were out and visited the property, they were talking about it maybe backing onto a wetland. My concerns are, how far do they have to build away from a wetland? And how far do they have to build away from the right of way?
Mr. Warren, can you address those, please?
Absolutely, through the chair,
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
The right of way, the first part of that, the right of way would remain the same and in private ownership, not the municipal ownership. There's been no requirement for a widening of the right of way. The question regarding the wetland is that the Conservation Authority has told us there is a locally significant wetland in the area, which is one of the reasons we've placed the H holding designation on it, to prevent any development from taking place until they have completed a more elaborate study, essentially a scoped EIS, environmental impact study, to look at this isolated wetland. In terms of the setback from the access right of way, it would be the standard, a similar setback to what the other dwellings in the area would have, accounting for the fact that there won't be a well and septic necessarily in between the house and the easement. It may be to the side.
Thank you.
And if wetlands are discovered or identified by the Lower Trent, there would be appropriate setbacks from those wetland areas too, I assume?
Absolutely, through the
Thank
chair.
you.
Yeah.
And those setbacks would be prescribed in our zoning bylaws?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the public? Or comments? Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Wilda.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I do have a few questions that were passed on to me from community members who couldn't be here tonight. You mentioned the environmental impact study, Mr. Warren. Some neighbors have mentioned that there's quite a bit of wildlife there. Would that be included in a scoped EIS?
Through the chair, no, it would not.
All right, they've indicated that there are a lot of birds, foxes, other critters. So they wanted to have that noted. Another, if I may. Sometimes in Smithfield, wells can run dry, and we had a drought summer this year. We will expect to have more in the future. Will a new well in this property impact other wells adjacent?
Through the chair, I cannot answer that question because I really don't know too much about wells. I know that a well would be somebody gets hired to put it in and I guess test the well against other ones. I cannot give you a more detailed answer than that.
Would it be appropriate to require a hydrogeological study?
Absolutely, if you would like to. I don't know if one was necessarily required, but I guess that would be something that would normally be determined at the building permit stage to see if the soils are appropriate for foundations.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. One more, Mr. Mayor, if I may. It's only one new residence, and so will not impact traffic significantly, but nonetheless, community members have asked, will there be a sidewalk there in the future? There are a lot of kids who walk to school there.
Through the chair, a sidewalk on Walt Street? I do not know that answer. I don't know if this development would precipitate the need for an additional sidewalk at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Thank you both. On the sidewalk question, I think if council wanted to budget for one, we could do that. That would be the answer. I think that would be appropriate rather than making one landowner pay for a full length sidewalk. Any other questions from members of council? I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright, that council receive the staff report dated October 14th, 2020. I'm sorry. Mr. Warren, do you have any final comments?
Pardon me. Through the chair, through your worship, simply that staff will work with the proponent to help fulfill the conditions required under the H holding designation. These will include not only a site plan to look at an appropriate building footprint, well and septic locations, a footprint for and all of those things outside of any wetland or any wetland buffer area. And would make sure that those are all in place and approved by the Conservation Authority prior to accepting an application to lift the H, which would then have to come back to this council.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. So now I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the staff report dated October 14th, 2025 regarding the subject zoning bylaw amendment application file number Z02, 2025 pertaining to 58 Walt Street. And further, that council enacts a zoning bylaw to rezone the subject lands from the future development zone to the special hamlet residential holding zone. And further, that the manager of approvals is directed to remove the holding symbol at the time that the holding provisions are met. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Is it appropriate, Mayor, to ask that the scoped EIS be expanded beyond just wetland availability? If there are, we recently saw Bill 5 reduce the concept of habitat to, and the example they gave was a fox den. And so hearing neighbors talk about the foxes that they see there and thinking, yeah, if there is actually a fox den, maybe we should know about it. It's the scope of environmental protection has been reduced so much recently. And if we're not even looking for the den, what are we doing, I guess?
Are you asking the mover and the seconder if they would consider that as a friendly amendment?
Sure. Yeah.
Councillor Rowley?
Excuse me, may I ask a question of the manager of approvals first?
Sure.
Is asking something like this a normal ask in other situations like this that we would ask to amend the scope?
Through your worship, I think it's quite reasonable, and I think it's something that the Conservation Authority wouldn't mind if they had concerns, for sure. I think they would have mentioned something, but I don't think it's a great extension of the scope to try and look at these things. Absolutely.
In that case, I would be in favor of adding that to the motion.
Councillor Wright? You can.
Most EISs in past have included the scope of looking for endangered species, correct?
Through your worship, that is my understanding, yes. That
Okay.
would normally be part of an EIS.
So then with the recent changes, that has shrunk or disappeared altogether in terms of looking for endangered species?
Through the chair, through your worship. It's a situation where I think it's still under the purview of the Conservation Authority. However, they are really focusing down on wetlands, and in particular with this one, they're calling it an isolated wetland.
Right.
So not necessarily its connectivity to other wetlands, which is part of the real key, but looking at it in an isolated manner, and hopefully they would do an investigation of everything that's sensitive and environmental in that area in order to determine the appropriate buffer.
Okay. Yeah, I'll agree.
Thank you. Just to get the wording, you're looking to that the scoped EIS be expanded to include wildlife habitat. Is that the correct wording? So as the mover and seconder, I've added, and further that the scoped EIS be expanded to include wildlife habitat. You're okay with that as the mover? Yeah, and this is seconder. Any further comments or questions from members of council on the motion? As amended. All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Our Third item in our statutory public meeting is with regard to consent applications B05 2025 and B06 2025, 1208 Richmond Street. The purpose of the public meeting is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting before council makes a decision, to obtain public input towards making any decision on the proposed consent applications. Ms. Britnell, by what method and on what date was notice of the application given?
Notice of the consent application B04 2025
So I am so happy to see that vision embodied in this document that will carry us forward toward achieving that vision. Well done, Ms. Whiteman. Well done, Director Walsh and staff. Great work.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon, for that. Any other comments? Councillor McCausland.
Maybe not as in-depth as Councillor Wheeldon, but I just wanted to say basically something along the same lines. It's another reason why I love being part of this town. We are already taking great initiative and I can't wait to see the outcome.
Municipality. You're welcome. So for my part, I immediately flip to the maps because that's just what I do in any planning application. I go to the map first to see what I'm supposed to be looking at before I read the document. These maps, I don't have a green heart like Councillor Wheeldon, but these maps really filled my heart with hope for our community, that it's going to grow the way we really see a community grow responsibly. So thank you, Mrs. Whiteman, for the work you've done. Thank you, Director Walsh and your team. And Mr. Barnes as well, of course. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Barnes, for your work as well. This is the kind of growth we're hoping to see, but hope is never a plan. And so this secondary plan provides us with exactly what we need for Brighton's future. And I appreciate everybody's work on this. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Oh, there. Thank you. Just want to make a comment along the same lines as well, that this seems like a very well-managed plan, which is something maybe in previous times, things weren't so well managed. We were just kind of building, and now we seem to have something that's cohesive and well managed. Good work.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to report 2025-143, proposed cat control bylaw and related costs. Bylaw Enforcement Officer Shepherd, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Sorry, through you, Mayor, not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receives the staff report number PD 2025-143 regarding a bylaw to regulate cats within the municipality of Brighton, and that Council, if satisfied with financial information provided, approve the sole sourcing of Northumberland Humane Society as the new municipal animal services provider as per procurement policy number CC010 section 5.6.1, and that a contract for the 2026 year be brought back to Council for an agreement by law, and that $12,000 in additional costs for cat control in 2026 be funded from the general reserves, and that Council direct staff to present to Council a bylaw amendment to regulate stray and feral cats within the municipality and, as appropriate, repeal the existing dog control bylaw and issue a new animal control bylaw. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next report is 2025-146 interim streetscape policy. Planner Whiteman, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight? Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council adopt the following motion: the interim policies for streetscape and the public realm as presented in the staff report be given effect through all consultations with potential applicants under the Planning Act and all related staff reports, and that these interim policies be referenced for integration into the forthcoming Brighton secondary plan and subsequent official plan update to ensure consistency and long-term implementation. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just once again want to heap some praise on our staff. This is fantastic. I have become a little bit of an urbanist nerd in the last couple of years, and the podcast that I've been listening to and the articles I've been reading contain all of the same language that I see in this report. It really is a vision for a more engaging, walkable community where we have an opportunity to interact with each other. I think for a great number of decades, we've engaged in a suburban experiment in which We all go directly from our cars to our garages or to our homes, don't necessarily know our neighbors and don't necessarily have anywhere to walk to. And Brighton is becoming more of a place where we can have places to walk to and things and people to discover along the way because of policies like this. So I'm very happy to see this happening.
It's actually worse than that. When I went to university many years ago, I would joke, and my mom's probably listening, sorry, Mom, that my mother would drive from the Bank of Commerce to the Royal Bank. And my friends at university would sort of shrug, well, so what? I was like, oh, you don't understand. They're literally a 9 iron away. Like, so but that was the Brighton experience. We literally drove everywhere, and I think in many cases continue to. So it's good to see these kinds of policies that will incent people to get out of their cars and walk about. So thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next report is 2025-148, Municipality of Brighton's Land Bank Program, Scope, Work, Request for Qualifications, and Request for Proposals for Development Master Plan and Business Governance Model. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
To the Mayor and Council, nothing further to add, really. I think it's fairly kind of comprehensive in there. So I think a lot of detail to grab a hold of. Just in terms of highlighting, the intent here is to bring forward a request for qualifications first, let them have a little bit of a presentation to council, have council be comfortable with what they're hearing, and then proceeding. The main intent of getting this in front of council now, it's been budgeted and whatnot already, and we've had lots of discussions about it, but I thought some details are hitting the road here, and in terms of vision and direction, I thought it was important that this be in front of council and at its earliest stages.
Thank you, Director. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the staff report dated October 14th, 2025 regarding a scope of work pertaining to a land bank program for the Municipality of Brighton, and that council endorses the scope of work presented in the staff report as the basis for soliciting a request for qualifications and a request for proposal in the deliverables of a development master plan, a business model, and a governance model. And the council directs staff to publish an RFQ/RFP consistent with the terms described herein and in keeping with the municipal template for bids and tenders procurement documents. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Sorry, everyone. Early before the meeting, I exclaimed giddily that this is like planning Christmas tonight with all of the great things happening. This plan has been a long time in the works. And I want to particularly thank Director Walsh for his vision and commitment to this project. We've been talking about it for a long time. We hear a lot about how expensive housing is. We hear a lot about the sad state of municipalities in a lot of cases. And we also hear a lot about how municipalities are just there for garbage collection and pothole filling. And the reality is that municipalities can and do a lot. And in this case, we are going above and beyond when it comes to taking major steps to produce affordable housing. This is something that is within our mandate as a municipality, but we so often hear that it's up to the province to do this. And the province is coming through with wastewater funding that is going to make sure that we have the capacity for all of the housing that can be built in this place. But this project represents an opportunity for Brighton to, in some ways, leapfrog parts of the traditional North American urban expansion, which is typically that an urban area will first sprawl into endless neighborhoods of single-family detached dwellings, and then as the cost of land shoots through the roof, then we'll build high-rises. Nobody's talking about building high-rises right now, but we are talking about a complete neighborhood design that's not just happening one house at a time, but is actually has a vision from the beginning that can include affordable housing, but can also include market housing and amenity space and more commercial. So I'm very excited to see this. I think this is a great opportunity. If you haven't already, please take a look at the document. And I understand it is completely written in planner speak. I'm happy to buy anybody a coffee. And if you want to hear more of what this vision could look like in our community, this is just a request for a plan at this point, but the vision is there and I'd love to share it with you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Just a comment. I would say aside from starting to see the wastewater thing come to fruition, I think this is probably one of the biggest things we can be proudest about around this horseshoe in our term. I'm very excited to see this come to life.
Agreed. So you concur it is like planning Christmas today. Any other questions or comments from members of council? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Next report is 2025-150, timelines for scheduling pre-consultation meetings with planning and development. This is a summary report. Planner Britnell, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through your worship, I do not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receives the staff report dated October 14th, 2025, regarding timelines for scheduling pre-consultation meetings with the Planning and Development Department. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought this one was worth explaining because one of the things that we keep hearing about with regard to the cost of housing is that long timelines of municipal planning processes cause a lot of costs for the development process, and that's one of the things that makes housing expensive. And at times that has been cited as being the thing that makes housing expensive. And what this chart illustrates is that it typically takes someone 9 days to get a sit down with planning staff in order to show their ideas or vision for their property and get all of the planning staff's input into what it takes to get it built responsibly. And so 9 days, we've got some here that say 4 days. Some that were a little bit longer, but on average, 9 days is very respectable. And I want to show some more appreciation to our staff for keeping it that quick. I have worked in other municipalities elsewhere that have taken far longer to get back to me, even just with a simple inquiry. So thank you, staff, for your alertness.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from members of council? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Before I go on to this, we also get told that things like development charges are expensive. And the other day I was reminded that Vaughan cut their development charges in half. And I commented, well, Brighton can easily charge the development charges of half of Vaughan's by doubling ours today. And that person stopped talking to me. We're not going to do that. I'm looking at Len. We're not going to do that, Len. Well, he does care. I know he does. Next report is 2025-153 Development Agreement Bylaw 619 Lakeshore Road. Manager Warren, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the staff report dated October 14th, 2025 regarding a development agreement that implements the recommendations and conclusions of reports submitted for consent applications B10 2022 and B11 2022 619 Lakeshore Road. And further, that council direct the mayor and clerk to execute the development agreement provided as attachment number 2. And further, that council enact a bylaw found in this agenda authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign the development agreement. And further, that council authorize the municipal solicitor through an acknowledgement and direction agreement to register the enacted bylaw for the development agreement, including making any necessary revisions to legal descriptions, names, or undertakings as may be necessary. And further, the council approve the development agreement completed by staff in attachment number 2 for the signatures of the mayor and the clerk. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. No items for information purposes. We have nothing listed under unfinished business. That brings us to bylaws. Our first bylaws with regard to 58 Walt Street, and it's moved by Councillor Rowley and seconded by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, R.S.O. 1990, to amend bylaw number 140, 2002 as otherwise amended of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton as it applies to the lands located at 58 Walt Street, described as Plan 41, Block F, Concession A, Part Lot 23. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
I think you missed one, but we can go back to it.
Did I?
58 Wall Street is 11.2 and there was 11.1 Community Safety and Policing Grant.
I have 11.1 as Walt Street, 11.2 is 619 Lakeshore Road.
Interesting. Okay.
11.3 is community safety.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong agenda. My apologies.
That's okay. We'll get to all of them, I promise you that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to 619 Lakeshore Road Development Agreement for Consents. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute a development agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and is it Richard Hebert or Richard Hebert? Do we know? Is it anglicized or Frank? Okay, Richard Hebert or Hebert? Hebert? Okay, Richard Hebert and Josie Leclerc for the property located at 619 Lakeshore Road, now 40 Rabbit Road, legally described as BF Concession Part 2, Lot 6, RP 38R 3221, Parts 1 to 3, subject to row over Parts 2 and 3, Municipality of Brighton, as in accordance with subsection 5126 of the Planning Act, R.S.O. 1990, Chapter P13. Is there any discussion? I just like to get people's names right. They're their names after all. All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next bylaw is with regard to community safety and policing grant, increased mental health coverage in Northumberland County. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement with His Majesty the King in the right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of the Solicitor General for the local priorities funding stream for the community safety and policing grant project increase mental health coverage in Northumberland County. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next bylaws with regard to community safety and policing grant, Peterborough and Northumberland Counties Human Trafficking Coalition. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives the bylaws first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw authorizing the execution of a transfer payment agreement with His Majesty the King in the right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of the Solicitor General for the local priorities funding stream of the Community Safety and Policing Grant project entitled Peterborough and Northumberland Counties Human Trafficking Coalition. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? Come on up. You know the rules, Deb. You got to be nice.
Good evening, I'm Debbie Perry, Your Worship Mayor Ostrander. I just have a quick little thing and then I'll get to my question because you know I always have a thing. Like Councillor Wheeldon, I also feel like it's Christmas today for the amendment to the bylaw. This is a long time coming, and you know how passionate I am about this. And on behalf of myself, MJ Galensky and Martin Field, we thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. This is step one. We have big plans in the work, so thank you for that.
Before I ask you a question, I just want to make it clear, you're talking about the animal control bylaw?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely needed changing, and you all know me, and I appreciate you putting up with me. So thank you for that. My question regarding that, I know it's going to take a little work to rewrite the bylaw to do the amendment. So we're looking at this commencing 2026. Is that my understanding?
Bylaw Enforcement Officer Shepherd, can you answer that question in brief?
Through you, Mayor, we are looking for an agreement for 2026, just out of ease of timelines, because we do have to give notice to Quinte Humane Society and Pierce Animal Control. We were looking to have the bylaw hopefully come to council by the next planning session in November.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you both.
Thank you again.
You bet. Is there anyone else with a question with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda?
I'm Christine Vanderneet. I live on Division Street North, 2 doors down from the subject property. My concern is the parking, because there's no winter street parking in our street, and also the water and sewer. We're now taking a duplex that's been vacant for too many years and turning it into 2 3-plex buildings. So that's 6 more units. And then across the road from us, they're building, or they're renovating a house that was formerly a single unit, now a duplex. So are the water and sewers going to be facilitated for that, and the parking?
Through your worship, you're referring to on Division Street?
Division Street.
The site plan that was approved in conjunction with the consents and the rezoning accounted for 10, I believe, on-space parking unit spots just on that site,
Just on the.
5 on each side.
Okay, but if there's 2 vehicles for each unit, which most people now have 2 vehicles to get to work, we're not all able to walk to work.
True, the zoning bylaw doesn't require a second one for the additional residential unit.
Okay.
So it meets the zoning bylaw that is there. That's in place for the subject lands, and we did get confirmation from Public Works that there was sufficient servicing capacity on Division Street for the extra units.
For the water and sewer?
Yes, both.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just me speaking out loud into a microphone here, which is always a dangerous thing to do as we set public policy. But there is a public parking lot about 300 meters to the north, not even actually, to the north of that. Those units, 28 and 30 Division Street, in behind the Legion. And I'm sure the municipality could work with any landlord tenant issues around additional parking if we needed to do that. I think we've done that in the past. We don't like to because of course it's public parking, but we will accommodate as needed. We don't want to see on-street parking either. Gets in the way of the snowplows. Figure it out. In order to keep people off the road, I think we could figure it out. And I realize I'd probably just cause staff a big knot in their stomach, but tomorrow is another day. I'm moving on to the confirmatory bylaw unless there's other members of the public who have questions with regard to anything that appeared on tonight's agenda. And there's no one on Zoom for that purpose, is that correct? So the motion is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton planning meeting held on October 14th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that the October 14th, 2025 council planning meeting adjourn at 7:26 PM. Is there any discussion? All in favor? And being none opposed, that motion's carried. May we affirm our dedication to uphold justice, freedom, and good government throughout Canada, and may God save the King, and good night, everybody.